Okay.
Let's start. A warm applause for the presenters.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Rad, and this is Teague Newman. We're really glad to be back in Berlin, Germany. We were here last year. Last year I was here in this room presenting about data havens and jurisdiction hopping. And after that, I had a different kind of project I wanted to work on. We had a bit of an inspiration looking at, everyone knows what Stuxnet is, and this isn't a presentation about Stuxnet. A lot's been said about that already. But this Stuxnet was an inspiration, so to speak, for the work that we did. And we apologize that the slides don't seem to be working, but we hope it is because we really would like to show you the demo with our programmable logic controller we have. So when we get to that, maybe the slides will be working. It's toward the end anyway. What we're going to do is talk about SCADA systems and PLC vulnerabilities in correctional facilities. Now, one of we kind of focus this research amongst correctional facilities. However, we'll talk about at the end how this is really any type of facility that has programmable logic controllers or SCADA, and if that's connected to the internet, the kind of work that we've done, it applies to that as well. We're going to discuss modern prison design, and my father, John Strauchs, has designed hundreds of security designs for federal prisons and jails. He couldn't be here in Germany today, but he's on Skype, so we might lift up the laptop and turn it around so he can see all of you just briefly. But we're looking at him right now. He's on in Washington, D.C. right now.
We'll try and get audio from him.
Yeah, we're going to try to get some audio so you can ask him some questions. We're going to theorize possible attack vectors, explain ladder logic. So if you're going to be doing any research with programmable logic controllers, we're going to tell you how cheap it was for us to do this. We got our equipment off eBay. And ladder logic's a pretty easy programming language to learn. And we're going to recommend some solutions because that's really the reason that we did this type of research. I am so glad to be back here at CCC. This has been an awesome experience being here. We just kind of got off the plane from DC, but that's where our research was based, pretty much in his basement. And I am also a computer science professor at the University of Southern Maine, and I teach information security, ethics, and law. So I teach my students about how to do stuff and then really the ramifications of how we do it and why we do it. I've studied a lot of different places. I spread out my educational background amongst universities in Europe as well, so I had a really good time doing that, and that's why I love coming back here. We've done this presentation at DEF CON this year, and that's my demo. Well, that's really about me. I'm going to introduce my father because you're not going to be able to see or hear him at the moment, but he's the senior principal of Strauchs LLC. He has been doing this type of work where he gets paid to break into places so other people can't break into places. He's been doing that for a long time, like 30 years, I think, or longer. He's probably going to say it's longer. But if any of you have seen the movie Sneakers that came out in 1992, that movie was based on my father and his company. And we still continue to do that. I mean, I grew up in a household really where we had like lockpicks and different kinds of fun stuff. We learned how things were vulnerable to breaking and then try to engineer better solutions. So that's how I got into what I do now. Let me let Teague introduce himself, and eventually I hope the slides come up so you get to have more visuals.
Is this mic working? Can everybody hear me? All right. So I am Teague Newman. I'm just a professional pen tester. I also do some instructing for core security technologies, but really I just like to break stuff, so that's what I do.
All right, another person who's on our team who couldn't be here today because no one knows who he is Dora the SCADA Explorer. He's a really good exploit writer, and he lives in Columbia, Maryland, works for a private company there, and when we came to him with our idea, he's like, yeah, I can do that in a really short period of time, and we'll tell you at the end how easy it was to really write this exploit. Contrary to what a lot of things you've heard in the media from programmable logic controller manufacturers, this is not a difficult type of project to do, and it's the type of thing that we're hoping gets their attention. This is not, yeah. Oh, good. Oh, I thought it was about getting the attention of the manufacturers. Hey. Well, we did use, the PLC we had was Siemens. The type of exploit we wrote is not, it could work on any type of programmable logic controller. It doesn't have to do particularly with Siemens.
All right, so we came into this with the idea that the red team always wins, right? So blue team, they have to safeguard against, 500,000 different things. We just have to find one. So, all right, so we decided to present about this so that wardens in these correctional facilities would know about the problem, because you can't really fix it unless you know about it. And also to kind of help these places get some funding to fix it if necessary as well. And once people understand what exactly is possible, rather than telling them, hey, don't touch that computer, when you tell them, hey, don't touch that computer because all the inmates might walk out, then they understand.
And when we're talking about fixes and funding, this is not an expensive fix to at least get the remedial measures in place. It's about training. When we did our tour, and we'll show you some pictures of what we did, what we saw. But one thing we did see that you don't see a picture of is that one of the prison guards is there checking email and on Twitter and stuff like that from the control room on the computer that controls the PLC. So that takes training. I mean, that's not an expensive fix to try to fix that up. So why don't you tell me the story of Christmas Eve?
All right. So basically, at one point, John was called by the warden of a prison, and it was on Christmas Eve, and there existed a problem. All the doors had come open on death row. So this was interesting. Clearly it was not supposed to happen. It's theorized that maybe because of Christmas time, there was different power draws. Well, what it really came down to is there were a couple of different parts that were out of spec, and something was leaking voltage that it shouldn't have, and all the doors flew open on death row. The thing to remember about this is, people on death row, they don't really have anything to lose, so it's extremely dangerous.
So it started with Stuxnet, and actually it started with a conversation with a Stuxnet researcher here in Germany and another in the United States who actually, they've taken apart the code, figured out how it works. So when I talked with them, I said, what would happen if we could have something like Stuxnet on something else? Everyone knew it was possible, so we're like, well, let's see if we can do a proof of concept for that. So Stuxnet for correctional facilities, what if someone wrote a virus or worm similar to that could just, as we mentioned, pop all the doors open on death row? And actually, since we've done this presentation, we did this at DEF CON, people have come up to us and said, I can't tell you who I am or where I work, but I just want to say, this is really a problem, and I'm glad you're talking about it, because this guy was saying, and many have said, I have a clearance, I can't really go public with this, but I'm glad someone is, because this is the type of vulnerability that people have known about for like 20 years. Finally, there's some other independent security researchers who are getting this out in the open and telling people, if you work at these facilities, if you do this type of research, get the word out that this needs to be corrected. So, introduction to correctional facilities and security designs. My father usually does this part, but we're going to split this up. Understanding really what a vulnerability is, you got to understand not just the technology, like how to do ladder logic for the PLC. It's about the design of the prison. So we're going to talk to you about some modern prison design. And as I mentioned, his movie and the work he did was inspiration for the movie Sneakers. He contributed a lot to the writing of that, how the sneaks, the break-ins occurred, and he does this for a living, which is quite fun. I'm sure many of you do too, so that's excellent. So,
all right, so with Stuxnet, it was directed against the somatic software. Supposedly, Microsoft released some patches that would have covered this. The computer was compromised, and then because of that compromise, the somatic software was taken advantage of.
So now it's all about the PLCs, and at the end we're going to discuss more about this too. It's not just correctional facilities, we're talking about power grid, pipelines, water systems, both for like the dirty water and the clean water. And also a new kind of research discovery vulnerability we found is with HVAC systems, heating and air conditioning. Well, it might be like, oh yeah, what's the big deal? You just crank up the heat on some building. But if you think about it, where the servers are for companies and stuff like that, when it has SCADA or PLCs controlling the temperature, you could do a lot of damage. And so this encompasses a lot of stuff, a lot more than when we first started the project. It was really eye-opening when we started talking about this, how many people have said, hey, there's this other thing. So we're learning a lot more about it as well.
So one of the initial things is most people didn't really realize that PLCs were in correctional facilities because the average person doesn't really know how a correctional facility is designed. So just we're going to put out some definitions here. So a prison is a state or federal facility. This is like long-term confinement. typically over a year. A jail is typically confinement of under a year, like leading up to trial,